Oh, let's start with Gasho. I'm sorry. Namam dums. Namam dums. Namam dums. So I'm always in awe of the vastness of the world and the universe. And there are a lot of metaphors and symbolism used in Buddhism that reference the beginningless beginning and timeless time. And it's so very hard for me to conceptualize that. Recently, I've been doing tours at the museum on Latin America. And so I've learned a lot about the Amazon River, which I didn't realize this, but after they've figured out GPS technology, the Amazon River is now considered the longest river in the world, over 4,400 miles long, with over 1,000 tributaries, and has the largest volume of fresh water of any river in the world, more than the Mississippi, the Nile, and the Yangtze rivers combined. And it was formed over 11 million years ago. And through geological changes, it now flows east instead of west. And how vast is the Pacific Ocean? Covering 63 million square miles, containing more than half of the free water on Earth, all of the world's continents could fit into the Pacific Basin. The Pacific is the oldest of the existing ocean basins, and its oldest rocks have been dated back to about 200 million years ago. And I have to admit, I have a hard time flying over the ocean. I don't like to have a window seat because it's so overwhelming to look down. But ancient Buddhist cosmology describes the universe as almost infinite in size, variety, and duration. And they use the Hindu term kalpas to describe immeasurably long cycles of time. So how long is a kalpa? There are various measurements. Sometimes one kalpa is equated to 16 million years, or sometimes it's described in more colorful metaphors, such as longer than the time it would take to fill a cube that is 16 miles wide and 16 miles high with mustard seeds at the rate of one mustard seed every 100 years. Or longer than it would take an eagle's wings brushing against a mountain once every 100 years to wear away that mountain. So a very long time. And Buddhism and Eastern philosophies like Taoism use metaphors of water and ocean to describe timelessness and convey teachings that have existed from the beginningless beginning. Water is described as being very humble. It flows down to the lowest places, a metaphor for a humble person. An arrogant person is quite the opposite, and always seeking the highest, most visible spot. Water is also benevolent. It nurtures all living beings equally without discrimination. As a river flows across the land, it nurtures all living things that it comes across. All the plants and animals benefit from the water of the river because it passes no judgment on anyone and makes no selection based on some preconceived values. And once it's done its work, water moves on without waiting for recognition or praise. Now compare this to how we often give with strings attached, expecting some sort of approval. Water is also flexible. It can take on whatever shape of its container. It can be solid or liquid or gas based on the temperature. And as it flows towards its destination, it handles all obstacles with the greatest of ease. It can flow to the left or the right without slowing down or stopping. Water flowing towards a rock doesn't get upset or annoyed by the obstacle, but instead just flows around it. Rivers and oceans have the capacity to welcome and to receive and to contain all the streams of clean water or dirty water or muddy water, rainwater, flowing from hundreds and thousands of different rivers, springs, ponds, lakes all over the world. And like what we just read this morning, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. We are all interdependent and all come together in oneness. As Shinran states, all the rivers of evil entering the ocean become one in taste with the water of virtue. So what do we learn from water? We learn to naturally treat everyone we come across with the same level of basic courtesy. We learn to cultivate humility, depth of character, kindness, integrity, flexibility. Water demonstrates a higher virtue, the virtue of unconditional kindness. In our world today, the news and politics seem to all focus so much on just the opposite of being humble. But each of us has a natural tendency as foolish beings to show even subtle forms of arrogance. A truly humble person is someone who sees their ego self. Becoming humble and seeing the ego self are two sides of the same coin that occur simultaneously. An arrogant person is weak, like a stiff oak tree that snaps in a strong wind. A humble person is strong, like the bamboo or willow tree bending in the wind. And Shinran also often used ocean as a metaphor in his many writings. And I got this from Reverend Sumikawa from Hawaii, where he describes Shinran's use of the metaphor of the ocean to describe human suffering, the ocean of birth and death. And he says, the ocean of human suffering is descriptive of the life we lead here today. We have all most likely experienced the suffering of sickness or loss of a loved one. There are people who are going through difficult times or have experienced the pain of separation, of job loss, of violence or abuse. This is the ocean of human suffering. But Shinran says that if we waken, this very ocean can be transformed into the ocean of calmness and serenity, the ocean of wisdom and compassion, the ocean of the primal vow of Amida Buddha. He tells us that the whole purpose of Buddhism is to transform, to convert the ocean of human suffering into the ocean of light, of calmness and serenity. Shinran wrote many poems focusing on this one point. The more that the ice is bathed in the light of compassion, the more it becomes the flowing water of reality. In Buddhism, every reality that we experience in life is faced head on. There is no escaping. There's no running away. There is a concrete facing of reality and seeing through it into its depth and transforming human suffering into a source of meaningful existence. The process of transformation is expressed in the phrase, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu is something we say with our lips, but is a sound that comes from the depth of the ocean, the fathomless depth of life itself. It is from this depth that comes the call, the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu that says, may all beings awaken and attain fulfillment, peace, and happiness. By awakening to this call and responding to it, we who live in the ocean of human suffering can experience the ocean of light, of wisdom, of compassion. In Jodo Shinshu, through deep hearing and reflecting on the teachings, we who are floundering in the ocean of human suffering will be transformed into the ocean of calmness and serenity. A life filled with difficulties, sadness, and tragedy is transformed into a life filled with gratitude and thanksgiving. This, in essence, is the life of Nembutsu. And to draw another analogy of the ocean, I took this from Reverend John Turner's lesson from the Everyday Buddhist course. And it's a clip from the TV show, The Good Place. And I don't know if you saw this TV show. It ran for 4 seasons, and you can get the reruns on Netflix. It was with Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. But this was from the very end of the series, where the main character, Chidi, explains to Eleanor the Buddhist understanding of life. And I think it explains it so well.
I was never good at being sad. Partly because my mom straight up told me not to be. But this is sad, man. You got a John Locke quote or a piece of Kantian wisdom you can throw at me?
Those guys were more focused on rules and regulations. For spiritual stuff, you gotta turn to the east.
I'll take anything you got. Hit me.
Picture a wave in the ocean. You can see it, measure it, its height, the way the sunlight refracts when it passes through, and it's there, and you can see it, you know what it is, it's a wave. And then it crashes on the shore, and it's gone. But the water is still there. The wave was just a different way for the water to be for a little while. And that's one conception of death for a Buddhist. The wave returns to the ocean, where it came from, and where it's supposed to be.
Not bad, Buddhists.
Not bad. None of this is bad.
I love that clip. So we are all individual waves on the surface of the ocean, some big, some small, each one of us unique. The spiraling waves, which are our egos, are caught up in our own churn of self-centeredness. We view our borders as firm and absolute, our thoughts and feelings as ours alone, happening only inside the walls of our skin. But for a short time, we hold our form, our own wave, until the wave comes ashore and returns to become one with the ocean. Shinran teaches us that awakening to Amida's teaching of oneness, we realize we are all interconnected to the world around us, just like waves, fluid energy moving through the fluid fabric of reality. We exist because of all the causes and conditions around us. And as the waves come ashore, that is our reality. Our individual wave has always been the same as the entire ocean. When we transform that ignorance or delusion of our unawakened life, that moment of realization of Shinjin, when we appreciate what we have received, we express our gratitude by bowing our heads with humility. We hear Amida's name and respond spontaneously by saying, Namo Amida. We are reminded as we read the 3 treasures how rare it is to be born human and to be able to hear the Buddha's teaching. And yet, after myriads of kalpas, now we are able to hear and receive it. So let us remember these teachings and keep listening deeply. And just like the wisteria blossoms, let us gracefully bow our heads in humility and gratitude. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amidams. Namo Amidams. Namo Amidams. Namo Amidams. Namo Amidams.